Hi, my name is Benjamin Bannon. I am 38 years old. I am from Houston, Texas, and in the spring of 2018, I was diagnosed with an unspecified primary immunodeficiency. The unspecified primary immunodeficiency is a difficult diagnosis because you don't fall into the categories of those that have identified name. So to insurance companies, it's really hard to support. So getting IVIG or sub-Q was a real challenge for me. Part of what makes my disease very difficult is that it just doesn't act like other primary immunodeficiencies. I don't have any autoimmune issues. My disease is characterized by recurrent upper respiratory infections. So my body is unable to fight off bacteria, and that develops very, very quickly into pneumonia. I've had pneumonia a lot in my life, and that's really how it started. I was 19 the first time I got pneumonia. It was a horrible experience. And I can remember laying in bed, feeling like I was dying, and just thinking, oh, God, I hope this doesn't ever happen again. My disease did progress slowly. I certainly was a sick child, but from what I understood, it was allergies. So I'm not sure if my family could, put the pieces together. But it was slow progressing. So I didn't get pneumonia until I was 19 for the first time. And then as I entered the workforce after college, I would have about 1 to 2 mild upper respiratory infections a year. That started to change in the mid-20s for me. I noticed that the intensity of the infections would increase, and it would kind of take me out for about a week each time. And I think when you're young and relatively healthy, or you think you're healthy, you just assume you get better. It wasn't until I was 29 and I was now getting sick 3 or 4 times a year, and it was feeling really bad. And if I didn't catch it in time, it would turn to pneumonia. I said, maybe I need to take care of these allergies. That's what I assumed they were. So I did find an allergist, and, he happened to be an immunologist, but I didn't know what that was. I just focused on the allergist part. 2 years of allergy shots going in every Saturday produced no results. I was getting sicker. And then the fatigue set in. I was always an active young person, but my quality of life was declining majorly. And that feeling, like I had pneumonia, was just staying with me. My immunologist, did every test under the sun, sent me to different doctors. We tried diets. Just the infections kept ramping up. There was nothing that would stop them except antibiotics, steroids, and it was affecting my home life. I wasn't able to spend time with my family, my friends. Work was becoming affected. I was missing a lot of work and wages. By the time, I was 33 or 34, things were pretty bleak. I was on FMLA at work. I wasn't able to function. I just wasn't the same individual. And it was clear that without antibiotics, I was going to be hospitalized. So I just had to live on antibiotics and steroid injections. And for a year and a half, right before diagnosis and then right after, I was living on oral antibiotics, going in for steroid injections 2 times a week, as well as antibiotic injections. You know, that's not a way to live. It was really, really scary. I felt alone. You know, they would test my immune system and it came back as, you know, there were problems. But because it didn't look like, a disease with a name, it was really hard, to treat or to get the IVIG for me. Health insurance didn't like that unspecified component. Eventually, after 5 years with my immunologist, whom I'm very thankful to, especially because he diagnosed me and listened to me and really taught me how to self-advocate, he sent me to an infectious disease doctor who agreed with the unspecified primary immunodeficiency. It was very clear. But he made a promise. He said, I'm going to get you on IVIG. It was very emotional. I cried a lot. It was October of 2019. And a month later, I got the call at work that I had been approved. Cried some more. And then December 17th, 2019 was my very first IVIG infusion. Things weren't perfect. My infectious disease doctor was gunning to get me off the antibiotics. And I don't know if he understood right away, just the nature of my disease. And I knew IVIG was gonna take a while to kick in. Well, I was off antibiotics for the first time in a year and a half. And within 2 weeks I had pneumonia. And then a week and a half after that, I got pneumonia again, in different places in the lungs. And we had to really rework and meet and really plan this out and build a proper team. And so I see an ENT, an infectious disease doctor. The infectious disease doctor is like my primary care, and I see an ENT. I see a pulmonologist for my breathing issues, and I'll be seeing a throat specialist coming up. Things aren't perfect, but the IVIG and infectious disease doctor have made a huge difference, as well as my ENT. I'm very thankful for my team. I receive bi-weekly plasma infusions. I have medications to mitigate the other symptoms. We're gonna work on the breathing next, but I am very fortunate that I'm able to go 9 weeks now without antibiotics or steroids. And a year ago, if you told me that, I would have laughed at you. So great progress has been made in the year and a half that I've been receiving IVIG. And for the first time in almost a decade, I have hope for the future. So if you're watching this and you're at a place where you feel lonely or it's just difficult, I've learned, most importantly, that happiness and contentment is not contingent upon a clean bill of health. Stay the course, advocate for yourself, speak up for yourself, and I have to give credit to the IDF as well. I discovered them shortly after my diagnosis, and the support group has been phenomenal, really phenomenal. Just knowing that there's others who have been through what I've been through, even if it's not the same, it doesn't matter. They've been through similar experiences. It's like a community. So thank you, IDF, and to all those who are watching, thank you, and best wishes.